Picture the dawn breaking over a blood-soaked plain on Rome's eastern frontier, the first rays of sunlight glinting off the ironclad forms of horsemen charging through the morning mist, their hooves pounding the earth in a relentless rhythm. These aren't wild raiders from the steppes, they're Roman, born of centuries of transformation, a striking evolution from the disciplined foot soldiers who once defined the empire's might. In Rome's early days, her military rested on the legion soldiers clad in segmented armor, gripping short swords and heavy shields, marching in tight, unyielding formations to conquer the Mediterranean world. From the fog-shrouded hills of Britannia to the sun-scorched deserts of Syria, their engineering feats roads, bridges, forts and their iron discipline built an empire that seemed eternal. Yet, beneath this formidable strength lurked a quiet weakness, mobility, or rather, the absence of it. The legion's slow, methodical advance, while a symbol of Roman power, left them exposed to enemies who struck with speed and vanished like shadows. No adversary exposed this flaw more ruthlessly, and Hannibal during the Second Punic War. His Numidian cavalry, light, agile, fiercely skilled, swept across the battlefield like a storm, their javelins raining down on Roman ranks, their horses dancing beyond reach before the legions could close in. These riders didn't seek the grinding pitched battles Rome craved. They harassed, they flanked, they bled the legions dry with hit-and-run tactics that turned Roman victories into exhausting chases. Then, in 53 BC, came Carrhae, a disaster that etched the lesson deeper. General Crassus, lured into Parthia's deserts, faced a nightmare. Horse archers peppered his troops with relentless arrow volleys, while heavily armored cataphracts crashed through, their lances and swords finishing what the arrows began. The legions, pinned and helpless, were slaughtered, a defeat that left Rome's pride in tatters. But Rome didn't break under these humiliations. Her strength was her pragmatism. What she couldn't crush, she studied, adopted, and turned into a tool of her own. Thus began the rise of Rome's mounted might, a journey from trudging infantry to thundering cavalry. In the early imperial era, under Augustus, Rome took deliberate steps to embrace this change. The legions remained the empire's heart, their swords and shields still the backbone of conquest. But the need for speed demanded a new arm. Enter the auxiliaries, foreign recruits from the provinces, men whose lives were shaped by the saddle. Thracians with their wild courage, Gauls with their sturdy mounts and fierce charges, Moors with their desert-born agility, Germans with their raw, untamed power. Once foes who blooded Roman spears, they now rode under the eagle, forming the alae, or wings, of the army, units of 512 riders in standard formations, or 768 in the elite ala miliaria, each divided into turmi of about 32 men, led by a decurion. These weren't nameless fodder. Their titles sang of their origins: Zalo Gallorum et Thrae, confused Gaulish and Thracian warriors, some earning honors like Invicta, the unconquered, for battlefield heroics, or Claudia, a mark of imperial favor bestowed by emperors like Nero or Vespasian. By the late 1st century AD, under the Flavian dynasty, Gaul alone supplied nearly 45% of these horsemen, not mere auxiliaries, but prized fighters, blending tribal flair with Roman order. In those nascent years, their equipment was a vivid patchwork, a reflection of their diverse roots. A Numidian might charge bare-chested, gripping a bundle of javelins, a small round shield slung across his back, trusting speed over armor. Beside him, a Gaulish noble rode, in chainmail, a heavy sword at his side, his horse snorting with the weight of battle. A Thracian might wield a curved blade, his eyes sharp beneath a simple helm. Over decades, Rome wove this chaos into a disciplined tapestry. Celtic-style helmets, broad-brimmed, with cheek guards and knee protection, became standard, offering defense without weighing riders down. The infantry's cumbersome rectangular scutum was traded for lighter, oval clipus shields, easier to wield on horseback. Armor varied to suit the rider's role. Larica helmata, flexible mail that moved with the body. Larica squamata, scale armor gleaming with a fish-like sheen. Though prone to wear, rarely Larica segmentata, the iconic segmented plate too rigid for cavalry's fluid demands. Their weapons matched their versatility. Riders trained with hasta and lancia spears for thrusting into enemy ranks or hurling at a gallop, practicing tirelessly, hurling 15 to 20 in a single session to master precision and speed. When spears were spent, the spatha came free, a long, double-edged sword, longer than the legionary gladius, perfect for slashing down from the saddle with devastating force. The brilliance of Rome's early cavalry lay in subtle innovations, like the four-horned saddle, a marvel of design that gripped the rider's thighs, offering stability without stirrups. which wouldn't reach the west for centuries. With this, they could fight, turn, and charge at full tilt, their balance unshaken. Their horses weren't the towering war beasts of medieval lore, but compact, hardy mounts akin to Welsh ponies chosen for endurance and agility over rough terrain, able to carry a rider through mud, hills, or rocky plains without faltering. By the century's end, cavalry numbers surged from 30,000 under Augustus to over 65,000, dwarfing infantry growth, a clear sign Rome had awakened to the power of the rider. This was merely the foundation. By the 2nd century AD, under Hadrian's reign, a new warrior thundered onto the scene: the cataphract, a figure not of finesse but of raw, destructive might. Rome first encountered them at Magnesia in 190 BC, wielded by the Seleucids, but Carrhae's horror made them unforgettable. Hadrian turned this eastern terror into a Roman asset, raising units like the Igalorum et Pannoniorum Cataphractaria from Gaul and the Balkans, melding Parthian tactics with Roman discipline. These weren't just horsemen, they were encased in armor, their scale or lamellar plates covering torso, arms, and legs, their horses draped in iron to chamfrons shielding faces, crinets guarding necks, scale skirts protecting flanks. They were living juggernauts, a fusion of man and beast designed to smash through anything in their path. Their signature weapon was the contus, a 15-foot lance gripped with both hands, too massive for a shield, relying instead on their armor's strength and the sheer force of their charge. In close quarters, they drew spathae swords for slashing or wielded maces and axes, crushing bone and metal alike. They fought in tight wedge formations, concentrating their power to pierce enemy lines like a spearhead, often held in reserve until the decisive moment, then unleashed to break the foe apart. Variants emerged to meet diverse threats, Clabinari, perhaps heavier still, their name evoking the stifling heat of their gearsome-like and them to walking ovens and hybrid equities. Sagittarii Clabinari, archers who could loose deadly volleys from horseback before charging into weakened ranks. These thrived in the East, Armenia, Syria, Osirian, Rome's answer to Parthia's relentless cavalry. By the 3rd century, as new enemies rose, Goths with their fierce raids, Sarmatians with their heavy lances, Sassanids with their organized might, cavalry became Rome's lifeline. The old infantry legions, once invincible, couldn't keep pace with these swift, mounted foes tearing at the empire's edges. Emperors like Gallienus and Aurelian leaned on speed and adaptability, creating mobile reserves to strike where threats flared. Diocletian and Constantine took it further, forging a dual military limitane, static border guards to hold the line, and comitatenses, elite field armies posed inland for rapid response. At the heart of these mobile forces rode the cataphracts, no longer mere auxiliaries, but the empire's mailed fist. Under Constantine, they joined the Sculi Palatinae, replacing the corrupt Praetorian Guard, their gleaming ranks a symbol of imperial authority, their charges a declaration of Rome's enduring power. The crisis of the 3rd century 235 to 284 AD tested this evolution to its limits. Civil wars fractured the empire, emperors rose and fell in bloody succession, plague ravaged the population, and economic collapse drained the treasury. Invaders seized the chaos. Sassanid cataphracts clashed with Rome's own in the east, a brutal mirror match of iron and wool. Into 60 AD, Emperor Valerian marched against Chapter I, only to suffer a crushing defeat near Edessa. Captured alive, the first Roman emperor taken by a foreign foe, a humiliation that reverberated across the empire. Raiders pierced borders too fast for infantry to catch. The old system of frontier garrisons buckled under relentless pressure. Rome answered with a cavalry revolution. Light horsemen scouted ahead, probing enemy lines. Mounted archers harassed from a distance, softening targets. Cataphracts delivered thunderous charges, their armor shrugging off blows, their lances splintering shields and resolve alike. Generals wielded this new force with masterful precision. Aurelian, dubbed Restorer of the World, rode at the head of his mobile armies, crushing the breakaway Palmyrene Empire in the east and the Gallic Empire in the west within 5 whirlwind years, campaigns impossible without cavalry speed. Constantine, a tactician as much as a reformer, leveraged his elite Sculi Palatinae at the Milvian Bridge in 312 AD, their charges securing his victory over Maxentius, cementing his claim as sole emperor. Roman writers like Ammianus Marcellinus captured their awe, describing cataphracts as bronze statues glinting like gods under the sun, their faceless helms and towering steeds breaking enemy morale before steel met flesh. Their presence wasn't just tactical, it was psychological warfare. a living testament to Rome's refusal to yield. By the late Empire, cavalry defined Rome's soul. Battles against Huns, Goths, or internal usurpers turned on their thundering hooves. Civil wars hinge on their loyalty, their allegiance often deciding an emperor's fate. The legionary of the 1st century, slow, rigid, bound to the earth, had faded, replaced by a new warrior, mounted, armored, swift, and versatile, a product of necessity and genius. When the Western Empire fell in for 76 AD, this legacy didn't parachute galloped east to Byzantium. In the shadow of Constantinople, cataphracts evolved further, their lamellar armor shimmering, their Cantarian lances piercing foes in tight wedge formations, supported by horse archers and disciplined infantry. Training was grueling, years spent mastering control at a gallop, striking with pinpoint accuracy, retreating in ordered ranks, making them the tanks of their era. Emperors like Nicephorus, Phocas, and Basil II harnessed them to reclaim Syria, Armenia, and the Balkans, their battlefield dominance sustaining Byzantium for nearly 1,000 years. In the West, as feudalism rose from Rome's ashes, knights emerged as the cataphract's spiritual heirs. Clad in heavy armor, mounted on sturdy chargers, they led charges with lances lower, their chivalric codes valor, honor, loyalty echoing the discipline of Rome's elite riders, though rooted in aristocratic privilege rather than merit. Orders like the Templars and Hospitallers mirrored Rome's rigid hierarchies, intense training, leadership from the front in the heat of the Crusades. By the 12th century, lighter foes like the Seljuks, with their swift raids, and the rise of missile troops, crossbows began to dim the cataphract's star. Their heavy armor a liability against nimble enemies, yet their influence lingered in the structure of feudal retinues, in the ceremonial pomp of military parades, in the command hierarchies that shaped Europe's medieval armies. The Renaissance rekindled Rome's lessons, as scholars and generals pored over ancient texts. Vegetus's writings on military discipline became a cornerstone for commanders. Machiavelli, in his treatises, praised Rome's adaptability, urging a return to her ordered ranks. The Spanish tercios, with their pikemen and arquebusiers in tight, disciplined formations, recalled the Roman maniples, their officers enforcing precision with an iron will. In the 18th century, Frederick the Great's Prussian army embodied Roman rigor, soldiers drilled to march, fire, and charge as one. Their tactics and hierarchical structure attribute to the legions and their mounted successors. Even as gunpowder and artillery eclipsed heavy cavalry, the cataphract's ethos, shock power, unit cohesion, decisive leadership lived on, woven into the fabric of early modern warfare. Today, that spirit endures in modern militaries, subtle but unmistakable. Sergeants and non-commissioned officers, like Rome's centurions, are the backbone of armies, training recruits, enforcing discipline, leading small units with authority forged in experience rather than rank. Military academies, West Point, Sandhurst, beyond study Rome's campaigns, from Caesar's commentaries to Constantine's reforms, teaching adaptability, command by example, the timeless value of leading from the front. The U.S. Marine Corps drills its recruits with a ferocity that echoes Roman legionaries under their centurions' watchful eyes. NATO's doctrine of flexible response mirrors the comitatus's rapid strikes. The cataphract rides on not in gleaming iron, but in every soldier who stands at the head of their unit, ready to charge into the fray, their leadership a living echo of Rome's mounted warriors. Rome didn't invent cavalry, she perfected it, bending it to her indomitable will. From the light riders of the early empire, hurling javelins across dusty plains, to the ironclad cataphracts thundering through enemy lines. From Byzantine lancers holding the east to medieval knights storming Europe's fields, her horsemen shaped the art of war across millennia. The empire fell, its roads crumbled into ruin, its language softened into echoes of liturgy and law, but the cavalryman's legacy, forged in steel, flesh, and unyielding spirit, thunders still. It lives in the structure of our armies, the training of our soldiers, the courage of those who lead under fire. As long as discipline, bravery, and leadership matter, the ghost of Rome's mounted might will never truly fade.